All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly on a lovely Friday night or Saturday morning for my Europeans. We are here, episode number 187 on Palantir Weekly. I'm here with Dom again, back on the show. We got you 2 weeks in a row, which is awesome. And Amir, how are you guys doing?
Doing good. Liking where the market's going.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Actually, if there is any European, please write in the comments. I don't believe there is any European up at 4 a.m. So let us know, guys, if you're in Europe.
Yeah, if we have some Europeans that are watching at this time, that's actually pretty dope. Pretty dope. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We have the Dan Ives Palantir price target, $290. Very exciting, and we're going to dissect and go deeper into how we got that price target. We've got Donald Trump, who is now the new president of the United States of America. I think there's obviously implications of Palantir, or of Trump on Palantir now that he's president, so we'll talk about that. And then we got a couple clips of some customers who came out this week and have been talking a little bit more about their excitement with using Palantir. One thing I want to get started with before we get into everything is we have not seen an official press release on any new deals on Palantir. Really in the month of January, I've been getting DMs and messages of people being a little jittery that there's no new deals. What is your guys' interpretation of that? And are you scared, nervous, or how you're thinking of it? Let's start with Dom.
I mean, you heard Dan Ives talk about this on X and others talk about it. Beware when companies are quiet, when they're great companies and they're led with great leadership, that's when they can really provide a surprise because the audience hasn't heard, institutions haven't heard a lot from them, yet they keep buying. They have 51% over ownership. Now it's officially over, institutions owning more than retail. So that's how that NVIDIA moment played out, right? A couple of years ago, not to say that this quarter is going to be their NVIDIA moment, but a lot of people were like hating on Palantir this week with like the price targets and saying $82 is crazy. This is, stupid. I'm getting out. They're only one deal away from ever growing fully into their valuation pretty quickly. I mean, people underestimate how big the deals they actually close. And this will probably go into the Trump segment, but they're going to have a lot more government business than you think. So I think we might have a buying opportunity because of the SARs, but if we don't and somehow they protect the price, then I think we go over to $100 within the next 3 to 4 months.
Amir, any thoughts on no press releases over the last month?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is pretty usual for Palantir, like weeks before leading up to earnings. They typically don't issue a lot of PR newswire stuff. So we typically don't get a lot of deals. And, most of the deals, like if you count the deals closed in the actual presentations, and then you look at how many PRs there are, it's not even close. So it doesn't say that they're not active, that they're not closing deals. It's just that they typically go into this kind of quiet mode just prior to earnings. So it's not concerning at all to me.
Yeah.
Pretty normal.
I would say the same. I mean, look, I agree with Dom. I think they're working on stuff. They got a lot of stuff cooking in the background. They are not, I don't think they need at this point to issue every little press release on different deals that they're getting. What matters is earnings and growth, and we'll talk more about that later. But
remember, they don't operate to the market. They operate to the mission and the company. So they could give two flying fingers about if they crush earnings or not. They know where their trajectory is. They probably have a better pulse on their business than most companies. But they are going after major challenging things that are going on in the world between multiple wars, wildfires, energy issues. I mean, they're involved in anything that's of major importance for our country. So now I'm sure with all the ICE stuff going on, they're probably involved with that too. So their heads down.
Just a Dom, for me and the 2 Europeans in the chat, can you show us what 2 flying fingers look like? We're not sure on the American term.
I'll let Amit do that. I don't want to demonetize him.
I don't think I've ever flicked off anything on YouTube. Anyone on YouTube? I never got that pissed off. So hopefully that never happens. Okay, so let's talk about Dan Ives, because Dan Ives has definitely been giving a middle finger to the Bears. That's for damn sure. $90 by Mr. Dan Ives. There we go. Let's read through the report he put out today, and then we'll get everyone's thoughts on it. We are raising our price target on Palantir from 75 to 90 as our recent checks and growing confidence in the company's AI strategy is key to the bull thesis on Palantir for 2025. We believe Palantir has a path to become the next Oracle or Salesforce over the coming years, and while the valuation is expensive today, we see the messy of AI as a core winner in the trillions of AI spent over the next 4 years, or the next few years. Palantir remains one of our top names to own in 2025 as its game-changing AIP strategy is quickly becoming a key foundational platform for enterprises headed down the AI use case path across verticals. New and existing customers across the commercial and federal landscape are waiting in line to sign up for the multiple aspects of the Palantir tech stack as the company introduces new valuable use cases to customers, with more organizations seeking to drive efficiencies on the backs of AI, with Palantir leading the charge. We believe the street is underestimating the $1 billion plus of revenue stream that Palantir's AIP US commercial business can evolve into over the next few years, and the technology competitive moat that Karp and company have built. We maintain our outperform. Dom, let's start with you. Does it make sense? $90?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about this earlier before we were on air. Is just sentiment drives the market. At least for the past 3 to 4 years, we've seen that. As long as earnings are, and if you're saying 90 within the next 12 months, yes, most definitely that, 90 tomorrow, that depends on how earnings are, right? But I think everyone here is long-term investors on the channel, in the chat. I know we are. So yeah, I definitely think that's very feasible. And the sentiment on AI in general is this is going to change the world, how we live in it. And we're seeing it move very, very fast. And what people are forgetting is everyone keeps talking about all these LLMs, but at the end of the day, you got to be able to get value out of the actual LLMs and actually secure them and have guardrails and all of the things that Palantir does. There's not anyone else that does it like Palantir.
Amir, does 90 make sense to you?
No, it doesn't make sense to me. And I think it's funny. We read that note, and each price target that he has had up until now, obviously he's been correct. The stock price has surged to his price targets, but the reasoning behind the price target is just nonsense. It's the same as when he issued his $25 price target. He could have just copy pasted the same things. It's not like he's seeing something new. It's just copy pasted over and over.
Maybe
and
he has a better pulse on the business and the sentiment. I mean, the guy's been traveling all around the world. He's very well connected.
For sure.
He
He is for sure proven that he actually understands the business. He talks to clients often. He understands their sales process, the value proposition. There's no doubt about that. But I still think that it implies, I just did some quick calculations, what obviously Dan Ives, he's not basing it on fair intrinsic value. He's pricing the stock. So it's two completely different things. When you say, well,
that's fair.
That's fair. Yeah. So when he says, well, the price target is this, it doesn't mean that the business is necessarily worth that, but it's just a fun exercise to do. So for Palantir to actually be worth $90, they would have to grow at 41% CAGR up until 2034. That means $100 billion of revenue in 2034, and that's at that 35% free cash flow to the firm margins. Obviously, that can happen. That can be plausible, but I can't tell a story where Palantir grows at 41% every year for the next 10 years. For me, that's hard. It could be because I don't understand the business enough, but obviously he's being correct every time. The only thing I would criticize Dan Ives for is we don't get a clear, he doesn't explain to us properly why it's $90. As I mentioned, he just copy paste the same reasons. He used to issue we are basing this price target on forward multiples on the revenue. For our bull case, he would say on a base of $5 billion in 2027, we applied this multiple, and that's how we got the price target. But if you recall, like previous Palantir weeklies, if you actually apply that multiple, you get something like a $28 price target. So the math was off. The reasoning, it doesn't really give us much. But then again, he's been correct every time, he and Mariana. So I can't really give the guy flack. But for me, someone that has a kind of different approach to investing, for me to really put some weight behind the price target, I would like to see something like more reasoning and explanation behind it.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I do think $90 obviously is aggressive, and it would imply from here another basically 25 billion to 30 billion in market cap. And so you got to ask yourselves, we're already at 185 billion. How do we get above 200 billion? Like, what would it take for that to happen? So here's the question.
I guess you got to look at the timeline. Are we saying that you think it's too stretched to get there in 12 months from now?
No, so that's exactly my point. The segue is, do we think that he knows Q4 is not only going to crush, but guidance for 2025 is going to be so expansive that even if $90 would be expensive with like 40, 50% growth, where, that's debatable, there would be so much energy and excitement on a, NVIDIA type of guidance that's why he's upgrading to 90. Do we think that's what's happening right here?
I mean, that would be insider knowledge at that point. If you have
not insider knowledge, but more so he's talked to so many customers that he knows they are,
I mean, that would make sense as far as like what could get it there soon. I like you think like what could get Wall Street to just kind of brush the SARS off to the side would be something like guidance that's just out of this world.
Right.
The only problem with guidance is if you have out of this world guidance, they're gonna baptize you with fire if you don't hit that guidance come the next quarter, and we've seen that before. So
yeah, and let's be clear. Even Dan Ives, he actually puts out projections in his Wedbush Securities notes. He is like way below 30% growth, and 30% for us on this weekly, we see it like as a given. Like, yeah, 30%, there's no doubt about it. But let's keep in mind, even Mariana, Dan Ives, the two most bullish analysts on Wall Street, they don't see 30%. They have their estimates are way lower. So for Palantir to actually keep that momentum, that positive sentiment going, it's not too difficult because their expectations are still incredibly low. Like their expectations don't really match the revenue growth. That's why you see all these comments on X like, well, the forward multiple is like this. I'm like, sure, it is expensive, but forward multiples based on Wall Street estimates, like Wall Street sees like 26% growth. Like it's crazy. Like, so yeah, I believe of course that there is a likelihood of Palantir hitting that $90 price target. Keep in mind, this is on a typically when Wall Street issue price targets, it's 6 to 12 months. Usually, I think Dan Ives has 12 months. So yeah, of course, $90 makes sense from that perspective. It has positive momentum. The business is really strong. That's what we need to keep in mind. They really seldomly have negative sentiment. There's no reason to be upset with Palantir since that 2023 Q1, Q2 quarter when they had like 17% growth. Like ever since then, it's just been re-acceleration story, all positive momentum, no negative sentiment at all. So it makes sense from that perspective. But just for me personally, I don't invest based on sentiment. So I really like the numbers behind my investment decision. So just for me, I would like some reasoning behind the price target. But just logically speaking, and what the market is doing, can it hit $90? Yeah, I can see a reality where that happens for sure.
Yeah, and I can appreciate, your methodology of investing. I would too, when you're more numbers focused and valuation focused. Hey, how did you get to that number? Would like to really just understand the math there, especially if it's in a short time frame. One of the questions I pose to you two is, there are companies out there that never have actually really met the expectation of the valuation, but yet they keep soaring and soaring and soaring. So the valuation is always a 30 or 40 PE, higher price to sales. I mean, there's something to be said if a company continues to reinvent itself and keep innovating, that the market will support it, because it's really hard to price in valuation when you talk about innovation and change. So do we think that, Palantir's not done reinventing themselves, and not to say that they can't come out with new products or new things that drive additional revenue streams?
This is the most common misconception about valuation. Now, when I say valuation, I'm not talking about price to sales, PE ratios. Those, of course, as you mentioned, you will never capture the kind of growth that these kind of businesses have. They will always appear expensive until they are mature businesses. So totally makes sense what you're saying there. But when you are valuing a business, you have projections for future performance, and those projections, they reflect your understanding of the business. For example, Tesla right now, if I am expecting humanoid robots to be this grand new opportunity in the markets that's gonna bring in trillions, I can actually model that in. So the valuation is a reflection of your understanding of the business. That's why when I hear people say you will never buy Tesla, you will never buy Palantir, you will never buy Amazon, if you're valuing businesses, I just think that's false, because I have been able to buy all three of them like under fair value. So I don't agree with that. But for people that are staring themselves blind on PEs and price to sales, yeah, you will never be able to buy something like a Palantir. And of course, I don't believe Palantir is stagnant. A valuation is never stagnant. You always need to keep revaluing the business whenever you're given a reason to. Whenever we find out something more about Palantir, for example, when AIP came out, when boot camps came out, like it changed everything. Like you have to redo everything to get a proper representation of the story. Like people think like a DCF is a valuation. It's not. It's just a method of like reflecting the narrative and tell the story. So yeah, I believe that we will probably revisit Palantir's valuation a lot, revise the numbers as it grows. It's still a very early story, so makes sense what you're saying.
To your point, I guess what I was getting with it, the question was, and then I want to hear Amit's answer on this too, is I'm more of a qualitative investor, and like when I'm investing, I'm thinking about the people I'm investing in. Like you talk about thesis breakers. Elon leaves Tesla. That's a thesis. That's a thesis breaker for me to not have as much in Tesla as I have. Karp leaving. That's a thesis breaker for me to not have as much as I have. Right. Same with Jensen. Like the culture that they have built in these companies, and the innovation and the changing as our technology and our society changes. They've shown they can pivot really quick. Like I was thinking about it just yesterday, like when he said in 2021, and we were like trying to like understand it, like he was like, we're working on stuff that you guys won't even know you need 5 years from now. And we were laughing like, okay, bro is pretty arrogant. Like I get it. I mean, that's pretty big stuff to just say there to Wall Street and to customers and everyone else. But it is 2000% exactly what happened. So, and I don't think he's done yet. I think that he has more aces of spades up his sleeve.
Yeah, remember the Davos interview with CNBC? I believe it was at Davos. They're like, well, analysts are saying this about your business. What do you have to say to them? He's like, I don't care what they say. I know what they will be saying in 2 years. Lo and behold, 2 years later, almost on the dot, everyone wants Palantir. So
they even had a booth. They had like a giant booth at Davos this year.
So the way I'm going to answer your question, Dom, is by transitioning us to the next topic, which I think will hopefully get us a better understanding of what's going on here. So first, let me set this up, then I'll give an answer. Stargate, Trump announces with SoftBank, Larry Ellison of Oracle, and OpenAI a new project which is going to invest $500 billion over the next 4 years in building out AI infrastructure for OpenAI in the United States. They said we will begin deploying $100 billion immediately. This infrastructure will secure American leadership in AI, create hundreds of thousands of American jobs, and generate massive economic benefit for the entire world. This project will not only support the reindustrialization of the United States, but also provide a strategic capability to protect the national security of America and its allies. So Palantir pumped 7% realistically this week because of this. I mean, the Dan Ives thing probably helped, but the initial 5% gain it got on Wednesday or Thursday morning, Wednesday morning, was because of this Tuesday announcement. So My answer to your question here is, do I think 90 is expensive? Yes, especially if we don't get the growth to be able to justify 90, which I would assume has to be 35 to 40% guidance. However, I kind of think Wall Street has come to the conclusion that there's 3 elements of AI that we can all make sense of: self-driving, robotics, and then enterprise software. And if we're spending $500 billion of CapEx, Microsoft said they're good for 80 billion, and Nadella said that a couple of days ago. And then Zuckerberg today said he's spending 65 billion. Microsoft spent 53 billion in 2024, so it's a dramatic upgrade. And Zuck spent about 48 billion, so now they're spending 65 billion. Again, a dramatic upgrade. I think the street's looking at Palantir and they're like, okay, there's no way we're building all these data centers, training all these models, getting all these new versions of GPUs, Blackwell, Hopper, etc., if we're not going to get use cases from them. And if we're going to get use cases from them, the one company out of all the software companies that should be getting the majority of the value of those use cases, at least in the words of Dan Ives, is Palantir. So, I mean, what's your perspective on that? Do you think the market's looking at all the AI CapEx spend? And I know Palantir doesn't necessarily directly benefit from it because they're not a hyperscaler, they're not selling GPUs. But is the market kind of like, well, Palantir's going to have to grow 40 to 50% if we're spending this much on AI CapEx?
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly institutions in the last, since they joined the S&P 500, have woken up and realized I have to pay attention to this company. I have to research it. I can't say it's a black box anymore and not invest. One, it's in part of the S&P 500, so a lot of funds have had to invest. So that automatically forces research on that. And I think a lot of people, once they pull back the covers, even though they don't probably understand the company like we do, I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I don't think a lot of people have spent the amount of time that we have on learning about Palantir and interacting with their employees. But it's like when we first saw Palantir, like we were blown away, especially those who've worked in software or have invested and looked at different software companies. They're just on a whole nother level from the way they handle the business and the outcomes they do and how they operate. It's totally unique. And I mean, if you look at it, they went from 30% institutions to 51 in a rapid pace. And I think we may even see, a year from now, I could see it being 60%. So I think that institutions are waking up and realizing this is a company that will continue to play a big part in the Western evolution, and that's why. And they know that the military is going to get more spending, and with the administration that's at hand, more innovation is going to happen in the military. That is for sure. Sorry, Amir, I was talking long.
No, go ahead. That's why we have you on to talk. People want to hear us talk. It's reasonable that the news played a role in the surge, but in practicality, I think we might see something different. Now, I don't believe this project itself is like that huge for Palantir. One, there is concerns about the funding from various sources. I haven't checked myself, but Elon says that, well, SoftBank only has 10 billion and so forth. But we know he has a negative bias towards Sam Altman. But also the news about the DeepSeek, where reportedly hobbyists are spending 6 million and have reached an LLM as capable as the current O1 models from OpenAI, is just baffling. It really puts into perspective that, well, people are spending all of these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars into training models, buying GPUs, CapEx spend, and these hobbyists from China just outcompeted everyone on like less than what a supercar costs for one of these like employees. Like, what is happening now? Of course, it is China. There could be a lot of accounting construing that like hides actual costs. So there's like propaganda involved. There is like misinformation involved. We don't actually know for sure, but the reports are, they spent 6 million on DeepSeek. It is as capable and in a much shorter time frame compared to everything we have in the West, basically. So I'm not sure about this $500 billion capex spend, especially when we're talking about Trump. Of course, he's not funding this project himself. They have Oracle OpenAI and SoftBank do that. But I really believe like if the industry will take a moment, step back and see like, okay, what are we actually getting for all this CapEx spend? So I think that might shake things up a bit. However, in
But doesn't that
practicality,
give you a bullish indication too? Like to your exact point, that question is so important.
yeah,
What are we spending all this money and what are we getting for it? And I think for us being Palantir investors and us seeing the outcome it's already proven, and I haven't seen any other software company touting the kind of returns on investment that they've been able to show, it's almost like inevitable that like there's going to be a lot of, and you've seen this on X, there's a lot of companies that are going to fail and they're going to fail quick and spend a lot of money and realize, wow, this doesn't deliver the value that my customers want. My customers are leaving us. And Palantir is going to be just sitting there like, hey, you pay with what you get, you pay for what you get.
yeah. I was gonna say, while that project in particular, I don't know about the implications for Palantir. However, if we're talking like a bit broader in the sense of the Trump presidency, I believe that will be massively beneficial to Palantir because the projected intentions from Trump is like, we are going to need to move fast. Like we need to reduce government monetary waste. We need to get more efficient. Obviously, Palantir is a proven way to become more efficient in your operation. So I think they will play a huge role across various parts of the government, not only be so DoD centered as they have been historically. I think an estimation from 2021 was that 77% of Palantir's US government revenue was actually the DoD. I made like from what's public, I can also see that a large majority of all the contracts is the DoD. I think that will diversify. I think we're going to integrate ourselves into more parts of the government. And we also need to keep in mind, David Sachs appointed the head of AI within the Trump administration. He's a Palantir shareholder. He's aware of the Palantir capabilities. So if we just leave this like, what is it called? Stargate? I forgot the name. It's called Stargate. Yeah. I don't know. Like there's some fishy stuff about that until like we actually start to see things move. I wouldn't put too much weight into it. Of course, it's good to be aware, keep track, see what's happening. But I think the Trump presidency and his intentions around all of these things is very bullish for Palantir. So I would like, for now, focus my research in that area because I believe that there's a lot of expansion potential under the Trump administration within the government. So yeah, I'm really bullish for that.
That's actually the next topic I was going to get to. Trump just became president Monday. It kind of feels like a new vibe that is currently in the United States. Dom, I know you're breathing the American air. You feel a little different than over the past 4 years. What's your interpretation of the Trump administration's potential bull case and bear case for a company like Palantir?
Bear case. Well, the bear case would be that they don't get selected for a lot of things that we would assume that they would be involved in. I mean, they have so many ties to Trump, from Lonsdale to Peter Thiel to David Sachs to, I forget the gentleman who's heading up one of the other military pieces who's on the Palantir board. So people have seen what this software can do. Now, if that doesn't get expressed and decided on and politics come into play, that would be horrible. But I don't see that happening because I think with this administration and what you've already seen start, it is very outcomes focused. And so I think we're going to see a lot of transformation. And from a business perspective, he understands where our country needs to be at. China really is, still one of the major threats out there. And AI is like the space race. AI is the space race now. And this is, I think, more dire, more impactful than what the space race was years ago. This is going to determine a lot about global dominance. So for the bull case, I really see us getting a lot more. Remember how you used to always say, I just want 1% of the government spend. I just want 1%. I think he's going to get a lot more than what people are evaluating and what they're seeing. So I think from that side, we'll see a lot. But in commercial, it's still it's still really early innings. I know once someone posted their hat on, they said they go to the gym every day and nobody knows what it is. Like one person said, and I comment on there, I said, yeah, I was like, I work in technology and I'll bring up at every customer call just to see if they know what it is. And they don't. And then I go on my spiel. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there it is.
Amir, what's your interpretation of the Trump admin on Palantir?
Yeah, I mentioned some things just now, but also I want to talk about the broader implications as well under Trump. You know, he recently had a speech. He wasn't actually present in Davos, but he pretty much demolished the EU for its heavy regulations. And, you know, he really like tore a new one. Like EU is not business friendly. Everyone is moving out of Europe. So I think if we can reinvigorate Europe, that's also a new opportunity for Palantir, because these stats are like, if I'm bearish about something with Palantir, it is these stats. 6 out of the 9 past quarters, so 2/3, international commercial revenue has actually been declining quarter over quarter. Now for 3 quarters in a row, international commercial revenue has been shrinking, like declining, minus. Like putting declining revenue and Palantir in the same sentence, that's kind of scary. Like Europe is in some deep trouble, and Trump, he just really put them on blast. If you listen to that Davos speech, like he really like demolished them. So I think both within the US, like he's really clear with what he wants to do. He wants to move fast. He wants to become more efficient. He wants the West to be stronger. Well, the US, but it will also impact the West as a large. And I think it's really positive. Like disregarding the government itself, just the I think I'm trying to remember who it was, but Druckenmiller went on and said that every business leader that he's been talking to is like really bullish, because now actually they can start to grow their businesses. Like this admin is really friendly to businesses, and it's starting to show. Like as you mentioned, like he's only been here for a week now, and it's like a completely different feeling surrounding. I think my daughter woke up. She might walk in here in a second. But yeah,
if you have to leave,
I'm really bullish.
Yeah. Well, I think also what's interesting about this is that we had the $500 billion that Trump announced. Then at Davos, he also said NATO countries need to spend 5% or more of their GDP on defense. And I think right now they're doing like less than 2%. So if they do start spending money, we know Palantir has a very antagonistic relationship, as per Carp, with Germany, France, etc. Dom, if they start spending on defense, I think Palantir catches a bid from that.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I mean, I think people have definitely paid attention to. They were the first in Ukraine. They've been involved the entire way and are still there, helping from not just the war piece, but all the rebuilding efforts that it's going to take, and the software to help them make those right decisions and maximize those efficiencies with the money they get. So the Germans know what it can do, even if they have their beef with Palantir and everything else. You know, the NHS had their beef with Palantir, and look, they're back using it. So if they choose to innovate and choose to spend money and realize that they have to push forward in that area, there's no other choice. I mean, that's going to give them the results. I mean, they can go waste their money or try to build it themselves, but that's going to just, they're not going to get there.
Yeah, and this is kind of highlighting what you're saying as well. We got this update from Lewis Mosley, who's the head of Palantir at UK. So he said in the Times tomorrow, Palantir is going to be mentioned with some of their AI platform being used with the police forces in the United Kingdom. And this part from the article says, needle in a haystack, connections that could have never been spotted by human detectives are being made by the AI. The results are incredible, says Roddenhurst, who is also the national police lead on serious and organized crime. If this were in every region overnight, you would join up policing for serious and organized crime, and I think that would be very powerful. When people ask him how he can afford to spend money on technology when resources are tight, he replies, I can't afford not to. If that is the energy that we're going to get across Europe, in Germany, France, we know the German police have started to use a little bit of Palantir as per last year. we should be able to get European growth or international growth just at a higher level. And the question is just going to be when that ends up playing through into Palantir's guidance. Okay, so that's what we got from the government angle. Here's a clip from Rio Tinto, who talked a little bit more about Palantir this week as well. And then we'll cover an IPO that's happening that Palantir actually backed. So here is one of the employees from Rio Tinto discussing their relationship with Palantir.
The world's leading biggest fleet of unmanned trucks, and that basically gives you a lot of data. And we have not been good enough at using the data. So there's huge potential. I'll give you one example. We work with Palantir on how we run our underground mine in Mongolia, and it's what you call a block cave, and you basically need to understand the seismics of the rocks everywhere. And we were just having overload of information, learning to extract the right data used in a structured way enables people to simply run the mine much better. We run the world's leading biggest.
Dom, you think we're going to get more and more and more of these CEOs highlighting these use cases, which is why Dan Ives is going to keep upgrading us?
Yeah, I do. And I think the real NVIDIA moment is actually when the developers come on board. There's DevCon 2 coming up. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already preparing for DevCon 3. That's a movement, right? NVIDIA knew that early, and that's why they have 40,000 developers on CUDA. Meta has a bazillion on their open source with their large language models with Llama and other things like that. So when you get the developer community, because that's what really gives you scale quickly, right? In the SaaS world, because that's your talent, that's your R&D and your engineers and your data scientists. So if you get their buy-in, they're going to tell you, no, I want that tool, because that will allow me to get my application and everything done way faster. Going back to the interview you did with Boundary Discovery, I think that was their name, with the news, they said, hey, we could have done this in 6 months and we would have had to pay people. We'd have to have the money to support it. But instead, we were able to get this Palantir done in about 3 weeks. I mean, I've just never seen a software company provide so many different use cases on the drastic ROI that they deliver. Like, it's just, I've seen a lot of companies tout their ROIs and stuff, and this is coming from CEOs and executives, and you don't see CEOs and executives, maybe 1 or 2 come on stage and give a testimony, not 40 at a conference. Like, that doesn't happen. It just doesn't. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Amir, any reaction to that Rio Tinto CEO?
Yeah, it's just one in the line of many. I mean, we've been seeing this actively during AIP cons, Foundry cons, CEOs of some major businesses coming out, and they pretty much all have the same praise. Something that would have taken like years is down to months, in some cases weeks. Money being saved, money being earned, everything just goes up. I think I saw some post, I can't recall who it was from, but it's like shrinking IT budgets. It's not that the budget is lower, it's that the value proposition for the software is just too low. And I think Palantir really turns that on its head. Like they are proving time and time again that, I mean, if you take all the AIP cons, for example, outside of healthcare, I can't really even remember like a recurring industry. Every AIP con, they're just introducing new and new use cases for new industries. Like healthcare has been like a topic for several AIP cons, but outside from that, it's like all fresh businesses. Like you watch an AIP con, you're like, oh wow, I didn't think of that, or I didn't think it would play such a huge role in this industry. As this guy mentioned, like mines in Mongolia, underground mines in Mongolia. It was like in whose like bull thesis is like, yeah, they're gonna revolutionize mines in Mongolia. Like no one thinks about it, but they can really, they've proven themselves. They can integrate into any industry, for any use case, and just provides so much value everywhere. And I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that Dan Ives obviously has woken up to that, even though he can't back the math. But I just on Dan Ives, I recall a tweet from Joseph Carlson like a day or two ago. It says like, "Oh, I figured out how Dan Ives makes his price targets. He just takes the current price and adds $15 to it, and it makes a lot of sense and seems to be working. So why change something that works?" But yeah, overall, I think we're going to see more and more people be proud of being associated with Palantir. It's not many years ago now, especially like even during the time they were public, Palantir wasn't even allowed to discuss like, yeah, we are providing software to this business, because they didn't want to be associated with Palantir. There's a lot of controversy surrounding Palantir, this black box that no one really knows. They have worked with ICE since 2003. No one wants to associate with them. So even though they had clients that saw value in using Palantir, they weren't allowed to like even mention it. And I think that's starting to change very rapidly. I think it will be a flex to say that, yeah, we are using Palantir. And it's starting to happen.
I mean, just look at how many employees they have, Amit. I mean, 3,900 employees and the revenues they're doing. And I'm telling you, they are selective as hell to who they hire. I've tried. You know, they have engineers that also have personalities. We call those in the industry unicorns. They're very, very rare. Can they be super smart, but also talk to a CEO and break down the business? Chad, holler at you. Definitely one of the unicorns out there. He's amazing.
Yeah, Chad is absolutely incredible. By the way, if folks are in the chat right now and they're not following Chad on X, please make sure you are following Chad. His Twitter is right there. He's at 9,200 followers. We want to get him to 10,000 as soon as possible. He is one of the people really leading the charge on getting the word out on Palantir. So please make sure to follow him there. And at the same time, Iliano, which the merch store is going to be back pretty soon. And we're going to get some updates on merch as well. You can follow him here. We got a IPO that's coming up from Voyager, which is a company that Palantir backed. I actually didn't know Palantir invested in them. I found out this week that Palantir invested in them, but I covered their working partnership with Palantir back in, I think this was like middle of 2024. Now it looks like Voyager Technologies, a space and defense company backed by Palantir, has filed for an IPO. The way we know that Palantir backed them is because in that S1, you have to disclose your investors on the cap table. And they're expected to be valued at between 2 to 3 billion. So question for you guys, do you think this is kind of a strategy Palantir wants to deploy? I know last week we talked about Palantir investing in Shield AI, but it looks like they're getting back to maybe investing, not into SPACs, but more strategic companies that are mission aligned with them and theoretically could help their bottom line as well when these companies go public, as they have more value on their balance sheets.
You can go first, Amir.
Me? Yeah, sure. When you are invested in a publicly traded company, you have to disclose that in a 13F filing. So we know that as of right now and for the past 2 years, they haven't been invested in any public company. So I'm curious to see how that will change into the future. I don't know if it's like some specific strategy that they are employing to like bolster both their own capabilities to have increase their network of what they can provide to clients. Like, yeah, we have this partnership, so we can provide this whole package rather than just a software. We can provide like everything. For example, by partnering with Anduril, they have like the hardware and the software. So that's obviously a really strong dynamic here. I don't know about this business and what they provide specifically, but just reading about it, it sounds kind of similar to what was the satellite company called Black
Satellogic or Black Sky.
Black Sky. So they seem to have experience in the field. They obviously know this business inside and out, the industry inside and out, if they are actively investing in them. So I wouldn't put it past them that they know exactly what they're doing and there's a clear strategy. But as of right now, at least, and for the past 2 years, they haven't been invested in any publicly traded company. So I'm not sure. I personally said that I really regret well, I can't regret it because it's not my decision, but I would have liked to see Palantir early on take a stake in Anduril. Now we know what kind of behemoth Anduril is becoming. So who's to say that they're not seeing something similar here and just want to right to those wrongs and take a new approach to the whole thing. But yeah, I think there will be dynamics in partnering, staying invested, and having an economic interest in businesses that share the same values, the same mission. So yeah, I'm not too sure until we get more details, but interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, a couple different things have changed since SPACland. One, they have FedStart, and they're already getting commercial companies into the federal government procurement process and being FedRAMP certified. We have a huge change in the administration, which is going to be pro-Western dominance and government spend. We're seeing the space talks and companies and satellites and all. I mean, the value that Starlink has already brought and other things. You know, we're going to continue to see those kind of things. And I remember speaking to a couple different Palantir employees, and they say, give it a couple of years, but people are going to be talking about Apollo. There's a lot of things that at the edge, when you talk about space and IoT and other pieces where data's going, there are some other advantages that we just Apollo's kind of swept under the rug. So I think they're being very selective on who they invest in, and they're making sure it's a sure bet that it aligns to some kind of, you know, industry they're already
in. I would love to hear what Amit has to say, but I want to ask you about Apollo, because I agree that's probably the one Palantir offering that not a lot of people are really informed on. But in terms of the deployment software, like what differentiates Apollo from something like an Octopus Deploy or whatever else is being used in the industry today? Because when I'm not an engineer, when I read about it, I don't really see anything differentiating it from offerings that are available in the market. So can you just provide like a quick thesis on Apollo, just for so that everyone listening in can
Where's Chad when I need him, or Code? I'll try to do my best. I'm going to butcher this, but
yeah, that's fine. I mean, I embarrass myself every time I come on here for like the past year. So
to my understanding, some of the things that jumped out at me was the auto deployment and auto updating of the code. So catching vulnerabilities and automatically updating those where there's no good internet connection and still doing it in a secure fashion. Now, I don't know how they're doing it. It still is like, I can just rack my brain on how they're getting those connections and how they're getting those updates and where they're connecting through. But the ability to have those vulnerabilities taken care of on the fly and have containers updated with applications and things of that nature, I mean, I guess the closest thing may be Confluent. I don't know. I don't know who their true competitor is with Apollo, but vulnerability management on any device or any application is still one of the biggest security risks out there. And also, how do you, get new code out there as, in real time? And with Apollo, they're able to do that.
Yeah, sorry to hijack it, Amit. You can go ahead and give us your thoughts on that previous topic.
Apollo is also something I'm not going to try to sound like an expert at because I don't fully understand it. Is it differentiated versus a lot of the other players you mentioned, Amir? I believe so from some of the analysis I have of it. But in general, we haven't got a lot of PRs on it either, right? So it's hard for Foundry is like the bread and butter that I think everyone, even though we all butchered the explanation of Foundry AIP, we can at least somewhat explain that in a better way. What I think is interesting about the Voyager IPO is that Voyager is using Palantir from the press release we got, I think back in March of 2024, in a really important way with their with the AIP and ontology stack on their space station. So to me, that's like a strategic way for them to actually be using Palantir, and then Palantir getting an equity stake. Same thing with Shield AI. They have a partnership they announced in December with them. I like this stuff. It's not like the SPACs. It's not the inflated 2021 era where everything's overvalued in a ZERP environment. I think this makes a lot of sense. Palantir's got $5 billion of cash, probably not buying back their stock. Taking some of these equity stakes is not the worst thing in the world to me.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see their connections in the biotech space. You know, that's boom or bust, but there's, you know, we know Accelera is one of those out there, a Peter Thiel backed company. I mean, I really do think in the next 10 years, we will see a healthcare just explosion of things we never thought would be solved, or at least, you know, mitigated much better. But I think we will see some crazy things with AI and healthcare in the future.
Okay, so last question for everybody. Earnings. We'll do a full earnings preview next week, but Amir, give me your raw thoughts. How are you feeling going into Q4?
You know, there's a part of me that wishes for like a complete airball, like total miss, and then I'm gonna load up as crazy. But the other part of me tells me that no, it's probably not gonna happen, and Palantir will kill it as always. No, but we have been seeing acceleration within the government business. Like for the past 4 quarters, quarter on quarter, like for multiple quarters now, they went from 5% growth, 12%, 24, 40. So they've been doubling and doubling and doubling. And I want to see that momentum keep on going. Likewise, commercial has actually been kind of weak the past 2 quarters. So I would like to see some life there. But yeah, overall, I am expecting at least 30%. So more than the street. I haven't really sat down and looked at the numbers. I'll make sure to prepare a lot of fun and interesting charts and some projections for next week. But overall, I am probably quite optimistic, but I do believe there are some weaknesses with the past quarter. The actual customer count growth has like really slowed down from what we have seen. Like we aren't really feeling like it should be exponential in essence, because you have all these boot camps that have like doubled how many they ran like quarter on quarter. So they started with something like 400, and then it went to 800 the next quarter, then like close to 1600. So that should mean an exponential increase in customers. Of course, they can run boot camps for existing customers as well. That's why current customers are like the net dollar retention rate is increasing. But I want to see higher customer count growth. I want to see a reacceleration of commercial, and the continued momentum of government is like some of the key things. And one of the other core points that I will be looking at is this continued increase of net dollar retention rate. If we can reach 120 for this quarter, I would be very happy. And of course, the margin expansion, but that's almost a given for Palantir at this point. So yeah, some pretty high expectations.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 for me. It's a coin toss, like you said. And Lunar hit on it earlier. I always love his commentary. He said, we got to cover up the I hope they have some good accounting magic to cover up the SARS, or else it could be a challenge. The only thing I could see that if the, you know, Wall Street, because, you know, not everyone factored that in yet. Now, if everyone does that next week and they all factored in and change their estimates, maybe it just skates by and it stays level. But the only thing I can think of that would get them to not look at that and the stock go up would be guidance that's 40 or 50% growth. And they're,
Do you think they would do that, Dom? 40 to 50%? Like, do you think we could get that in Q4?
I mean, they know so much of their business more than we do about these contracts and who they're talking to. And I mean, big deals take a long time. Like, that's the thing with, you know, this company in general, is still their deals are very, very large. So it's lumpy, right? We've always talked about that. The revenue's now gotten steady, but the big deals are still very lumpy and they take a long time to close. So if they have a couple government contracts that they know and they're waiting till all the confirmations and everything's, you know, coming in, and all of a sudden they land them, you know, it could really change the growth trajectory. So that's the thing.
I agree with you guys. This SARS thing, I have no idea what the hell is going to happen with this. Maybe it's pricing, maybe it's not. I think they're going to guide for 32 to 34% growth and then slowly, hopefully make their way to 40%. I think if they give us 40%, it'd be a statement, but then the street would expect 45%. You know,
Right. And I think they learned their lesson with that too, with the whole 5 years of 30% growth. So they've been really good about, like, I think they're going to hit their execution. They're going to hit it. But then when that SARS comes out, I mean, there's still some haters out there. They're going to be throwing that whole 90% miss on stuff.
Yeah.
I actually don't believe they will even, like, if they guide 30%, I would be surprised. They've always been really, really timid with their own estimates, and that of course sets the bed for beating estimates. So I'm not sure. I don't think the management team will go out and say like 35-40%. I think the probability is like extremely low of that, just from what they've shown us historically. Now, in reality, do I believe that they can have that 40% year-over-year quarter? Yeah, I do believe that. And can you just share the screen? I just want to show this chart quickly to the stream. So this is total contract value per quarter, which is basically during that quarter, how much total contract value did they close? And we can see that this past quarter, it's not even one of the best quarters. Like Q3 of 2022 was 1.3 billion. Q4 was really strong last year with the 1.15, and then we have this 1.1. We know for a fact, with like all the deals announced in Q4, I think this will blow it out of the water, which will give a lot of confidence in future growth to the investors and analysts tracking this stuff. So I know that the PR, maybe that's why you mentioned it earlier, like the PR leading up to like during the last part of 2024, it was like crazy. We were getting deals left and right, the government, commercial, partnerships, everything. So I expect that I hope that we will hit a new all-time high in actual total contract value for the quarter, and I think that will send a signal like, okay, you can start to expect this from us into the future. So yeah, it kind of feels like a pivotal moment, right? We have this Trump presidency, everything like feels pivotal, like everything is being turned on its head, everything is changing. Kind of feels like that for Palantir too. They have had this runway of, okay, you went live with boot camps, AIP, you initially said you have no pricing strategy. Recently came out in the UBS report that yes, they do have a pricing strategy. This is how they set it up, but it's not fully fleshed out. It feels like now they can't really blame, like it's about to be 2 years that AIP has been out. Like we need to have some answers, and I think kind of feels like a very important quarter. If not this one, then at least next one we should have some pretty clear guidance on what we can expect from the business. But I still believe that the management team will be very cautious with their guide. I'm not sure we can see something like a 40%. Like, I've been wrong before, I can be wrong again, but yeah, still.
Sachin thinks we're going to 200, so
it
could be. Who knows? What is that? Like
450 billion?
Accelerator.
It is, but wow.
Yeah. Sachin, I don't know if you're joking there, you're being super serious. I do know Sachin's macro thoughts that we are super risk on. And then if we are super risk on and we get 40 to 50% growth.
How about this? Sachin, why don't you come on and tell us? Like, you haven't been on for a while now. We kind of miss you. So come on, give us your updated thoughts. I think everyone wants to know what Sachin thinks about the current state of Palantir. At least I do. So come on my channel if you don't want to come here.
Yeah, he's been having some family stuff, which is why he hasn't been able to come on. But everyone knows that Sachin went all in at $8 on margin, and that is paid off, very nicely. So I agree, it's going to be an inflection quarter, bro.
Yeah, it does feel like there's going to be some companies that are going to be penalized this quarter if they don't have good earnings, because everyone's been hearing AI, which is true. And we're in early innings and we are going to see outcomes, but there's a lot of companies that are going to not deliver the results because their AI is not delivering true value. And that's only going to support Palantir stronger in the long run.
Yeah, and I think these PowerPoint sellers like Salesforce, that like yeah, we're going to replace your sales force with our agents, but to sell this product we are actually going to hire a sales force. Like it's just crazy what's happening. But yeah, I believe that the all these players that Carps has, stake dinners, PowerPoints, you all know, like golfers, they are going to start to be exposed one by one when it truly matters, because the expectations out of businesses is just so much higher now. Like AI isn't as new as it was. Like given we have reached some sort of saturation point in all the LLMs, I think we're going to start that transition. As Shyam said, like LLMs are being commoditized. DeepSeek more than anything shows that. Like they took $6 million reportedly and just caught up to like all of these billions and years of spending into LLMs, and they just caught up like in no time at all. So I think the era of LLMs, that whole part is about to be commoditized. So now it's the focus is going to shift to the like, okay, how do we actually use all these LLMs? How do you use all of this compute that we have invested all of these billions and hundreds of billions of dollars of capex in? Like, how do we extract value from that? And I think that's where a company like Palantir will actually start to realize most of its value and appreciation within the market. So I think it's going to be a huge year for Palantir overall, because just the trend around AI is it's come to that. I mean, we heard about a year ago that Snowflake CEO talked about, no, this year is the year of hardware. Next year is going to be the year of software within the AI sphere. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
I'll leave my last comment here for the stream. Amit, you've asked several times over the past couple episodes, where would you want to see them spend their money? I want to see them find more engineering talent so they can scale even faster. Like that's where their money should go. Is, I mean, I can't imagine, how do you scale 3,900 employees to the possibilities that this company could go without adding heads? So that would be the one place I'd like to see, you know, bring some more, train some more future leaders in the business.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think we can end on this comment by Sachin. Everything that has pushed Palantir to 80 has only improved. At some point, we will have a drawdown, but at this time, I don't think that is happening. The AI hype is only going to increase. If Palantir can fuel that with increased growth guidance, then it could be a special year in 2025, just like it was in 2024.
And we will.
I mean, no, I mean, you have all of these testimonials from like the leading businesses of their industries in the world. They're like, yeah, we implemented Palantir. Here are the results. Like, how can you watch that and not be excited and think like, oh my God, they are killing us. We also need to get on this train. So that's why I think like that's been the power of these AIP cons and having people present. Like, what do you as a competitor to those businesses think when you're sitting there and you're saying, yeah, we implemented Palantir and we saved the $250 million the first year? You're like, what? If you're a competitor to that business. So yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to what Sachin is saying. I think the operationalizing of AI, that time is about to be now. As Amit likes to say, I don't wear a watch because the time is now, or whatever you say.
Dude, I haven't said that line in a while. And you just reminded me that was an Amitism that I got to bring back. I don't wear a watch because the time is now. There you go. There you go.
I mean, either.
Yeah, you either. All right.
Way to end it.
That's it for us. We'll be back next week. So next week, we will have a proper Palantir earnings preview. Earnings is on next Monday. So we'll be live on Friday. And then we'll get Q4 earnings and 2025 guidance. And we'll see.
I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about after that, for sure.
We will have a lot to talk about after Q4 earnings and ultimately how they guide for 2025 as well. All right. Thank you, everybody. Dom and Amir's Twitter and YouTube's in the description. We will see you guys.
Yeah, help me get to 10,000. I've been stuck at 9,000 for a lot. I'm not like Amit.
Yeah, go follow Dom. He deserves it for sure.
Yeah, everyone's stuff in the description. We'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone. Have a good one.